For a long time, he was the perfect boyfriend, the one who finally managed to win Trent's elusive approval. We all watched as he bonded with the family, went on fishing trips, and seemed to seamlessly blend into the Johnston way of life. It felt like a fairy tale romance for Elizabeth, and for a while, we were all convinced that wedding bells were inevitable. But the fairy tale is officially over. We have uncovered substantial evidence suggesting that Trent and Amber have turned on Brice, and they are secretly maneuvering to push him out of Elizabeth's life for good. The smiles are fading, the pressure is mounting, and the once welcoming parents are now seemingly orchestrating a cold, calculated exit for the man they once treated like a son. From subtle snubs at the dinner table to impossible financial standards designed to make him fail, the writing is on the wall. Brice is being slowly, painfully erased from the family picture, and today we are going to expose exactly how they are doing it. If you want to stay ahead of the curve and uncover the dark truths behind reality TV's most famous families, make sure you hit that like button right now. It helps us get this information out to more fans who deserve to know the truth. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the 7 Little Couple channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a breaking update or a deep dive analysis. We are tracking this story around the clock, and you won't want to miss what comes next. To understand just how drastic this shift has been, we have to look back at how this relationship started. When Brice first entered the picture, the narrative was completely different. He wasn't just Elizabeth's boyfriend. He was the golden ticket. We saw Trent, a man who is notoriously protective and critical of anyone dating his daughters, actually open up. He took Brice under his wing. We saw them bonding over outdoor activities, discussing cars, and sharing a mutual love for fishing. It wasn't just tolerance, it was acceptance. For fans, this was a massive green flag. We thought, finally, someone who understands the family dynamic, someone who respects the parents, and someone who treats Elizabeth like a princess. They were positioned as the golden couple of the series. While other siblings struggled with dating or navigated long-distance complications, Liz and Brice were the constant. They were the stable, happy duo with a bright future mapped out. They had the prom photos, the sweet social media posts, and the seemingly unwavering support of the Johnston patriarchs. It felt like Brice was already part of the family furniture, a permanent fixture in the Johnston legacy. But reality TV is never that simple, and neither are Trent and Amber. Somewhere along the line, the script flipped. It wasn't a sudden explosion, but a slow, creeping erosion of that goodwill. If you have been watching the recent seasons closely, you have probably felt that uncomfortable tension rising. We call this phase the pressure cooker. This is where the supportive parenting shifted into what looks a lot like setting someone up to failure. We started seeing scenes where the conversation wasn't about bonding, but about interrogation. Trent and Amber began drilling down on Brice's career, his finances, and his timeline for marriage with an intensity that felt less like concern and more like harassment. Think about the conversations surrounding them moving in together. Instead of guiding them as young adults navigating a difficult housing market, the dialogue often centered on what Brice wasn't doing. There were constant remarks about financial readiness, about the stability of his job, and about whether he could truly provide for Elizabeth in the way Trent expects. While financial advice is normal for parents, the tone here was critical. It felt like they were moving the goalposts. Every time Brice reached a milestone or showed commitment, the expectations were raised higher. It creates a dynamic where Brice is constantly on the defensive, constantly having to prove his worth, while Elizabeth is placed on a pedestal. This is a classic manipulation tactic. By making the partner feel like they are never quite enough, you create cracks in the relationship's foundation without ever having to explicitly say break up. You make the environment so stressful and so unwelcoming that the partner eventually pushes away on their own. And it is not just the verbal pressure. The nonverbal cues are even louder. We have gone back and analyzed hours of footage from recent family gatherings and dinner scenes, and the body language tells a devastating story. In the early days, you would see Amber engaging with Brice, laughing at his jokes, making direct eye contact. There was warmth. Now, watch those same scenes in the latest season. The warmth has been replaced by a chilling indifference. We noticed multiple instances where Brice is speaking and Amber is barely looking at him. Her smiles often appear strained, tight-lipped, and do not reach her eyes. It is the classic polite tolerance look you give to a guest you secretly wish would leave. There is a specific scene from a recent family barbecue that really highlights this shift. While everyone is laughing and passing food around, Notice the physical distance between Trent and Brice. In the past, they would be standing shoulder to shoulder at the grill. Now, there is a palpable gap. Trent focuses his attention on the other kids or on Elizabeth, leaving Brice somewhat isolated on the periphery of the conversation. When they do interact, it is brief and transactional. The mentorship vibe is dead. It has been replaced by a boss-employee dynamic where the boss is looking for a reason to fire the employee. This kind of social exclusion is subtle, but it is incredibly damaging. It signals to the rest of the family, and to Elizabeth, that Brice's status has been downgraded. He is no longer one of us. He is an outsider who is overstaying his welcome. So, why is this happening? Why turn on the perfect son-in-law? This brings us to the most controversial aspect of our investigation, a theory that suggests this isn't just about teenage drama, but about a calculated brand decision by the parents. We have received reports and gathered insider theories that suggest Trent and Amber believe Elizabeth has simply outgrown Brice. This sounds harsh, but look at the trajectory. Elizabeth has been killing it. She has been focused on her nursing career, she is independent, she is driving her own success. In the eyes of ambitious parents like Trent and Amber, who are very conscious of their public image and success, Brice might now be viewed as dead weight. There is a swirling rumor, stemming from what a source on set allegedly overheard, that paints a very grim picture of Amber's true feelings. According to this insider theory, there was a heated off-camera discussion between Amber and a producer where the mask slipped. Amber was reportedly frustrated, venting that Brice lacked the necessary drive to keep up with Elizabeth. The alleged quote that is circulating in the deep web forums and insider circles is that she said, "He was a fine high school boyfriend, but it's time for her to find a man, not a boy." If this is true, it changes everything. It means that all the concern about finances and housing isn't about helping them. It is about highlighting his inadequacies to force Elizabeth to see him through their eyes. This aligns perfectly with the fake concern we see on screen. Whenever they praise Elizabeth's career achievements, which they do constantly, and rightfully so, it often feels like there is a silent, "unlike someone else," attached to the end of the sentence. They are building Elizabeth up as a high-value, successful career woman, and by contrast, they are subtly painting Brice as a nice guy who just lacks ambition. They want a power couple. They want Elizabeth to be with someone who matches her hustle, someone who brings more to the table financially and socially. And let's be honest, there is another layer to this brand theory. There has always been speculation that the Johnstons, consciously or not, prefer the idea of an all-little-person family to maintain the unique branding of the show. While they accepted Brice, who is average height, there is a lingering suspicion that they would prefer Elizabeth to settle down with a little person who is also high-achieving, keeping the family dynamic consistent and arguably more marketable for future spin-offs or seasons. The strategy here is what we call death by 1,000 cuts. They aren't going to forbid Elizabeth from seeing him. That would make her rebel and cling to him tighter. Trent and Amber are too smart for that. Instead, they are making the relationship a burden. They are making it so that every time Elizabeth looks at Brice, she hears her father's voice asking about his 401k. Every time she brings him to dinner, she feels her mother's cold shoulder. They are planting seeds of doubt in Elizabeth's head, making her question if Brice really is on her level. They are exhausting her. Relationships are hard enough when you are young. They are nearly impossible when your family, the people you trust most, are actively rooting against you from the sidelines. We are watching a slow-motion breakup orchestrated by the parents. They are waiting for Elizabeth to reach her breaking point. They are waiting for the moment she gets tired of defending him, tired of the awkward dinners, tired of the pressure. And when that moment comes, Trent and Amber will be right there, ready to say, "We told you so," and ready to steer her toward the kind of partner they believe she actually deserves. This is manipulation at its finest, disguised as parental concern. We need to talk about the overheard conversation in more detail and connect it to the specific timeline of events. Because when you line up the alleged comments from Amber with the timeline of Brice moving out and the temporary split we heard rumors about, the picture becomes undeniable. This wasn't an accident. This was a plan. Let's dig deeper into the insider chatter regarding the production side of things. Reality TV producers are often the silent catalysts in these family dynamics, and the relationship between the Johnstons and the crew is intimate. They have been filming for years. When sources claim to hear things on set, we have to listen. The narrative that Amber views Brice as a boy rather than a man fits perfectly with her on-screen persona of the matriarch who demands excellence. Remember how hard she pushes the kids in school, in driving, in moving out? She has a very specific blueprint for success. Brice, with his laid-back demeanor and blue-collar interests, fundamentally clashes with the image Amber wants to project. He represents contentment. Amber represents ambition. In her world, contentment is dangerous. Contentment means stagnation. If Elizabeth stays with Brice, Amber fears Elizabeth will settle for a quiet, average life in the country, rather than the high-powered reality TV stardom and professional success Amber envisions for her. Furthermore, we have to analyze the editing. The editors tell the story the producers want us to see, but they also work with the material the family gives them. Notice how often the camera cuts to a blank or confused expression on Brice's face when the family is discussing complex topics or future plans. That isn't accidental. That is a deliberate choice to frame him as simple or out of the loop. It reinforces the narrative that he isn't quite sharp enough for the Johnston clan. It subliminally tells the audience to agree with Trent and Amber. It makes the viewer think, maybe they are right. Maybe he isn't the one. We are being programmed to root for the breakup. The financial pressure is another huge piece of this puzzle that we need to unpack further. Trent's obsession with Brice's finances goes beyond normal fatherly protective instincts. In today's economy, very few 20-somethings have the level of stability Trent is demanding. By setting an impossibly high bar, Trent ensures Brice always falls short. It is a setup. If Brice works all the time to make money, he will be criticized for not spending enough time with Elizabeth. If he spends time with Elizabeth, he will be criticized for not working enough to secure their future. He is in a lose-lose situation created by the very people who are supposed to be his future in-laws. And let's not forget the emotional toll on Elizabeth. You can see the conflict in her eyes in the recent episodes. She loves Brice, that is clear, but she also desperately seeks her parents' validation. She has always been the high achiever, the one who wants to make Trent and Amber proud. This puts her in an agonizing position. She is being forced to choose between the man she loves and the approval of the parents she idolizes. Trent and Amber know this. They are leveraging her desire for their approval to wedge her away from Brice. It is a psychological tug-of-war, and Brice is the rope that is fraying. The cracks are also visible in the siblings' behavior. Usually the siblings are a united front, but notice how quiet the other kids have been regarding Brice lately. In the past, they were all joking around, very close. Now the interactions seem muted. This suggests that the parental narrative has trickled down. If Trent and Amber are speaking negatively about Brice behind closed doors, the other siblings, Jonah, Anna, Alex, Emma, pick up on that energy. They might be pulling back to avoid conflict with their parents, or they might have been convinced by the "he's not good enough" rhetoric as well. When the whole family unit starts to close ranks, the outsider stands no chance. We also need to consider the timing of the move-in debacle. The back and forth about them living together was excruciating to watch. It was presented as a logistical and financial issue, but many fans believe it was a control tactic. By delaying the move-in, by putting up hurdles, Trent and Amber bought themselves more time. More time to find flaws, more time to wear Elizabeth down, more time to hope the relationship would fizzle out due to the stress. They know that once Liz and Brice are living together under their own roof, parental control diminishes significantly. They are terrified of losing that control. Keeping them apart, or keeping their living situation in limbo, keeps them under the Johnston thumb. If we look at the trajectory of the show, conflict drives ratings. A messy breakup, a wronged daughter, and protective parents rallying around her. That is TV gold. A happy, stable marriage? That's boring. There is a cynical but valid argument that the production, and perhaps the parents themselves, know that a dramatic split yields better storylines for next season than a quiet wedding. Brice might just be collateral damage in the quest for higher viewership. In the next section, we are going to dive into the specific red flag moments from the latest episodes that prove this theory is not just speculation, but a reality unfolding before our eyes. We will break down the dinner conversations word for word and show you exactly where the insults were hidden. But before we do that, ask yourself, if you were in Brice's shoes, would you stick around? Or is he already planning his escape? To understand the severity of the situation, we have to dissect what we are calling the birthday incident. a moment that many fans missed, but which our analysts believe serves as the smoking gun in this investigation. In a recent celebration sequence, while the cameras were focused on the cake and the festivities, the background audio picked up a conversation that was chillingly dismissive. While Brice was attempting to tell a story about his work week, trying to engage with Trent on a peer-to-peer level about manual labor and the realities of his job, Trent immediately cut him off to pivot the conversation back to Elizabeth's recent academic accolades. On the surface, this looks like a proud dad bragging about his daughter. But in the context of behavioral psychology, this is a dominance display. It effectively silenced Brice, signaling to everyone at the table that his contributions, his life, and his struggles are secondary to the family narrative. You could see Brice physically shrink in his seat, his smile faltering for a split second before he forced it back on. That is the face of a man who knows he is being squeezed out, a man who realizes that no matter how hard he works, he will never sit at the head of the table in this family. This brings us to the hypocrisy that is infuriating viewers. Trent Johnston has built his entire public persona on being a hardworking, blue-collar family man who isn't afraid to get his hands dirty. He fixes things, he builds things. He is the ultimate handyman. So why is there such disdain for Brice, who is following a very similar path? Brice works in a trade. He is industrious, he is handy, and he is outdoorsy. By all accounts, he is a mini Trent. Psychologically, this might be exactly the problem. There is a theory circulating in the fan community that Trent sees too much of his younger, struggling self in Brice. Instead of empathy, it triggers a need to correct it. Trent wants Elizabeth to have the security he perhaps didn't have at that age. But instead of mentoring Brice to get there, he is using Brice's current financial standing as a weapon against him. It is a classic projection of insecurity. By deeming Brice not enough, Trent gets to feel superior, forgetting that he likely started in the exact same spot. It creates a toxic double standard where Brice is judged for things that Trent is praised for. But the plot thickens when we look at the replacement theory. This is where things get dark. We have received anonymous tips suggesting that Amber is not just passively hoping for a breakup. She might be actively scouting the field. There are whispers that the parents have been subtly networking within the little person community, keeping an eye out for eligible bachelors who fit their specific criteria: ambitious, college-educated, and arguably of short stature. The Johnstons have always been advocates for the little person community, which is fantastic. But is it possible they feel Elizabeth's brand and the show's longevity would be more secure if she were part of a power couple within that community? A mixed-height relationship is fine, but an all-little-person family is a stronger marketing hook for TLC. If these rumors are true, then Brice never stood a chance. He is fighting a battle against a preconceived notion of what the perfect Johnston future looks like, and he simply doesn't fit the physical or social profile they have drafted in their minds. We also have to talk about the trap of the house. When Elizabeth moved into her own place, it should have been a moment of independence. Instead, it became a new venue for parental control. Trent and Amber were heavily involved in the process, from the logistics to the setup. By maintaining such a heavy hand in her living situation, they ensured that Brice could never truly feel like the man of the house, even if he were visiting or staying over. It reinforces the idea that Elizabeth is Daddy's little girl first, and Brice's girlfriend second. Every time Trent comes over to fix something or inspect the property, it is a territorial mark. It reminds Brice that he is a guest in Elizabeth's life, a guest who can be evicted at any moment. This prevents the couple from developing the necessary interdependence that strengthens a long-term bond. They are never allowed to struggle and solve problems alone. The parents always intervene, robbing Brice of the chance to be the hero for Elizabeth. Let's analyze the vacation snub. In previous seasons, family vacations were inclusive, but recent social media posts and filming schedules hint at a subtle segregation. We are seeing more family-only trips or outings where Brice is conspicuously absent. The excuse is usually work schedules, but in the world of reality TV, schedules are made to be broken. If they wanted him there, he would be there. His absence speaks volumes. It allows the family to rewrite history, creating memories and inside jokes that he is not a part of. Slowly, he is being edited out of the family album. When he does reappear, he is out of the loop, awkward, and trying to play catch-up, which only reinforces the narrative that he doesn't belong. It is a social exclusion tactic often used by high school cliques, weaponized here by grown adults against their daughter's partner. Furthermore, we need to address the confidant strategy. Amber has positioned herself as Elizabeth's best friend. While a close mother-daughter bond is beautiful, in this context it can be manipulative. By being the first person Elizabeth runs to with problems, Amber gets to frame the narrative. If Elizabeth complains about a minor argument with Brice, which is normal in any relationship, Amber can magnify it. She can validate Elizabeth's annoyance and plant seeds like, "You shouldn't have to deal with that," or "That shows a lack of maturity on his part." Instead of helping her daughter navigate relationship hurdles, she is handing her daughter an exit strategy. She is stockpiling these complaints to use as ammunition later. Remember when he did this? Remember when he said that? It is a slow poisoning of Elizabeth's perception of her own relationship. Now, consider the financial ultimatum rumor. There is chatter on the forums that Trent essentially gave Brice a deadline. Not explicitly on camera, but behind the scenes. A timeline to reach a certain income level or have a certain amount in savings before he would give his blessing for marriage. This is a brilliant tactical move by Trent because it disguises control as looking out for his daughter. If Brice fails to meet this arbitrary deadline, Trent doesn't have to be the bad guy who said no. He can just say, "You didn't meet the goals we agreed upon." It shifts the blame entirely onto Brice's performance, ignoring the economic reality that young people face today. It sets Brice up to be the one who let Elizabeth down, rather than the parents being the ones who pushed him away. We also have to look at the editing room conspiracy. We touched on this earlier, but look at the sound design. In recent episodes, when Brice makes a joke, the editors often cut to silence or cricket sounds, or show a reaction shot of Amber looking unimpressed. This is a deliberate production choice to make him seem unfunny or cringeworthy. If the editors wanted to, they could cut to a shot of someone laughing. They are choosing not to. This suggests that the production team is aligned with the parents' narrative. They are crafting a storyline where Brice is the dud that Elizabeth needs to shed to blossom. The show needs a villain or an obstacle, and right now, Brice's inadequacy is the plot device driving the season. The most damning piece of evidence, however, might be in Elizabeth's own behavior. In the early days, she would fiercely defend him. If Trent made a snarky comment, she would push back. Lately, she has gone silent. When her parents criticize him, she looks down. She nods. She looks tired. This is the look of someone who has been worn down by attrition. She is tired of fighting a war on two fronts. The constant drip feed of negativity from her parents has likely seeped into her subconscious. She is starting to see Brice through their lens. The romance is being strangled by the constant need for parental approval. We are witnessing the final stages of the discard phase. So, what happens next? The grand finale of this orchestrated breakup is fast approaching. The narrative seeds have all been planted. The lack of ambition, the financial instability, the growing apart. We predict that the season finale, or the premiere of the next season, will center around a tearful realization by Elizabeth that she needs to focus on herself. But we know the truth. It won't be a realization. It will be a capitulation. It will be her finally surrendering to the relentless pressure campaign waged by Trent and Amber. Brice is unknowingly on trial, and the verdict has already been written. He is no longer considered worthy of the Johnston family brand. Watch closely in the coming episodes as Trent and Amber escalate their campaign of subtle manipulation. They won't rest until their golden child is free from the man they have deemed a dead end. They are clearing the board, resetting the pieces, and preparing to launch Elizabeth 2.0, a version of their daughter who is single, successful, and ready for a partner who fits their exacting standards. This isn't just a breakup. It is a hostile takeover of a young woman's love life. And the tragedy is, Brice seems to be the only one who doesn't realize the game is already over. He is still showing up, still trying to fish with Trent, still trying to win a game that was rigged from the start. But there is one wild card they haven't accounted for: the fans. The audience sees through it. The comment sections are flooded with support for Brice and criticism of the parents' controlling behavior. Will the backlash be enough to make them change their tune? Or will they double down, convinced that they know what is best? One thing is for certain. The fairy tale is dead, and the reality of the situation is far uglier than anything TLC is willing to show us directly. We will be watching every move, analyzing every glance, and decoding every silence. This story isn't over yet. If you believe Brice deserves better, Or if you think Trent and Amber have crossed the line, let us know in the comments below. We need to get the conversation started. Don't forget to like this video to help the algorithm spread the truth, and subscribe for the next update, because when the official breakup announcement drops, and it will, we will be here to break down exactly how it happened. Stay tuned.